I was thinking about converting them to Airbnb. This is like 2019 or something. And then I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Long term, everything. This is back when the times were good. Now my yield was significantly larger long term than it was my buddies that were Airbnb.
If I would have known now or knew then what I know now, I would have probably treated COVID in a different way. Because of the low interest rate environment at that point, I should have bought a lot more, put it on 30-year fixed notes at sub 4%, right? That was a smart thing to do instead of just recycling so many deals as we did, which was great because we made a ton of money. But looking at it from the long term, the 30-year play, it's like, well, I probably should have kept at least a third of the ones that I sold. Some people also got hit at the end, right? Like they bought deals like right in 2022.
Speculative buying.
They were thinking like, hey, I'll buy it today. Maybe I'll put a small bridge loan or something like variable rate or something because they thought they were going to be able to refinance out of it and got stuck with them. Or, I'm sure a lot of people in this game, in the Airbnb game or the short-term rental game, that bought it based on the financials that an Airbnb was producing during the hot time. And after, once Airbnb kind of fell off, it was like, oh, now I can't support my mortgage, right?
Got clobbered.
What kind of advice do you give those people? I mean, do you think there's some shadow inventory still coming from that? Do you think that there's,
I think there's still inventory in the Airbnb space. I will not flip an Old Town right now because I got caught a couple different times when I thought it was safe. And all of a sudden, when I'm ready to list, there's a swath of inventory that just 30, 40 houses that get listed within a 2-week period, and I just get clobbered. When people think all over the country, right? When people think Airbnb, where they go? They go to Scottsdale.
Right.
Like it could be somebody from Minnesota
right.
or Scottsdale or New York. Like it's for some reason Scottsdale is the place to whatever. I don't know where people got this idea.
It is pretty nice in certain times of the year. In South Scottsdale's, it's not bad. Well,
I mean, it is nice.
It is nice.
But I do think we have some backlog that we still need to get through in the Airbnb space.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting when you're driving through Scottsdale. You can just see it too. You can notice, you can like drive down a neighborhood and just on one street, it's like Airbnb, yep, Airbnb, yep. I mean, you can tell from the very beginning, right?
And I'm just not a fan of Airbnb. I feel like it destroys the community.
I had 3 of them in 2018, and it was too much hands-on experience, and it cost too much to have somebody else manage it. They were charging me 20% to manage it, and I felt like every time somebody would leave, something would be broken or something would be missing, or it was just a pain. Matter of fact, one of them in South Scottsdale, there's like an addition on it that we put a pool table in, right? Well, around the whole side of the addition is all windows, and for some reason they always got broken because people would I guess hit it with the pool stick and it would break a window almost every time. And so thankfully, I kind of saw the writing on the wall at that point and turned them all into long-term rentals.
Good.
But same thing. I just wasn't a big fan. It's a lot of hands-on stuff.
It's just too much operational bullshit. I bought 2 houses in Old Town right next door to each other, and I was thinking about converting them to Airbnb. This is like 2019 or something. And then I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Long term, everything. This is back when the times were good. Now my yield was significantly larger long term than it was my buddies that were Airbnb-ing in Scottsdale.
When you look at it from an annual perspective, of course it is, right? Like you might have a couple of killer months, but then you got all these down months. And all the expenses. I mean, I think when people really look at a P&L, which I feel like, gosh, unfortunately, a lot of people don't look at a P&L. But when you look at the real expenses of an operation, you look at what is your net number at the end of the day? Dude, long term is still great. When everything is financed correctly and you're cash flowing the right way you're supposed to, you're not going to make, a ton of money on one house. But when you get 20 to 50 or 100 of them, that's where it really becomes really cool.
That's when it becomes sexy. It's a boring game, and the way I get through it is because to your point, when you thought you should have, instead of selling all these homes, put cheap permanent debt on all these things, but it's just so tempting. You see that 50, 80, 100 grand rip on the back, and you're like, fuck,
It does. It blinds you.
It really does blind you, and I for whatever reason, my brain, if there's 100 grand rip on there, sometimes if I feel stressed out, I'm like, okay, what can I tap into or sell? But if I'm not, it's just for me, I don't know. The long-term rental game is boring as hell, but I tell myself, stay the course because over time it'll get sexy, it'll pay off, and blah, blah, blah. And I was actually just talking with my wife, Danielle, yesterday at dinner, and she's like, these rentals are finally starting to become sexy. Because we have, I don't know exactly how many rentals we have, but we have about 150 to 180 grand gross coming in every single month.
Yeah.
And we've had most of these rentals since 2020, and rents have gone up, and the perm is, whatever.
It's good permanent debt.
Good permanent debt. And it's okay, now to buy a rental, the first 1-2 years it sucks because it's razor thin margins, but over time, it that's where it gets good.